Austen. Speaking of Jane Austen, look at this tiny itty bitty Jane Austen that my cousin got me for Christmas one year. Isn't it cute? Itty bitty. Anyways, you're probably thinking, Lauren, you don't really look like yourself, and you would be right, because I normally don't dress like this. But I decided to really lean in today's topic, which, based on the title, you all probably know that today we're going to be talking about cottagecore, the trend that is taking TikTok by storm and that a lot of news outlets have actually been writing articles about. Now, this is definitely not like my usual content, as you know. I usually talk about capsule wardrobing, sustainable style. That is something I really love, but I'm really interested in starting this kind of ongoing series called Fashion University, which was where we explore some of the themes and trends coming out in fashion today. I did this a little bit in my What's Wrong with French Girl Style video, which I will link up here. It's something that I really love doing, exploring where these themes and these trends come from, how can we apply them in a sustainable and ethical way, and of course, sharing creators with you that I really think do that. I hope that you all are interested in it. Now, of course, I will be still creating regular capsule wardrobing content, but I kind of just want to sprinkle a little bit of academic fashion in there, you know, occasionally. So I really hope that you guys are looking forward to that series. Before we get into the content of this video, I just remind you to subscribe if you haven't already, and if that content sounds interesting to you, give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and go ahead and comment below and let me know what other kind of fashion themes or trends that you would like me to comment on in maybe one of my future Fashion University videos. Let's go ahead and get started. Oh, and you might want to grab yourself a cup of tea. It seems very fitting. Now, contrary to my introduction, cottagecore is definitely not all Jane Austen and teacups. There's actually a really complex set of definitions that are floating out there on the internet, and I really want to share some of them with you guys to lay the groundwork about what we're going to be talking about today. I have my notes with me, so of course, if you ever see me looking down, that's where I'm looking. So of course, in honor of my own scholarly achievements and respect for peer-reviewed research, I went to Wikipedia to find a definition. Wikipedia says, cottagecore is an internet aesthetic that celebrates a return to traditional skills and crafts. The idea of cottagecore can help to satisfy a popular desire for an aspirational form of nostalgia, as well as an escape from many forms of stress and trauma. Definitely sounds like the kind of trend that we need right now. As a matter of fact, it seems to fit in perfectly with all of the stuff that 2020 is throwing at us to try to find a way to find freedom and express yourself in a way that is totally opposite of what our culture is right now, which is consumerist, consumptionist, and of course, obsessed with technology. Another article from The Guardian that really talks about cottagecore says, cottagecore's goal is to eschew digital connectedness in favor of a connectedness to nature. This is definitely not a new trend in the history of humanity. There have been several historical figures and several entire eras and centuries, in terms of literary periods and periods of art, that really emphasized a return to nature and an obsession with the pastoral. I mean, we can think of Henry David Thoreau, who wrote Walden, and the whole premise of that book is essentially a return to the simple life. Of course, one of the most famous monarchs, Marie Antoinette, also had like a cottage in the country that she would go visit, and people would often criticize her for abandoning the people of her country in favor of more simple living. Although that really didn't do too well for her in the end, because, you know. And of course, an obsession with nature and the natural really boomed in 18th and 19th century Europe as we transitioned from Victorianism into Romanticism. We see the trend in a lot of our art and our literature, but just like any movement or lifestyle out there, there are a lot of criticisms that come with cottagecore. A lot of people say that it is an obsession with escapism, trying to get out of your own world and the realities of the world that we live in, which, I mean, who can blame them? Others say that it's all about fetishizing the outdoors, being overly obsessed with nature, and applying that into your life in ways that are impractical or inappropriate. And the last criticism that I think a lot of people might have is that cottagecore tends to romanticize like frontier or prairie life, which has its ties in a deep history of stealing land from indigenous peoples. Now, that being said, I don't think that people who really ascribe to a cottagecore form of living really have these kinds of things in mind. Really, I think in its essence, cottagecore is just trying to reach back into a simpler past or to reach forward in hopes of a simpler future. It's merely a response from the pendulum swinging over here where technology reigns all the way over here to where simplicity is really king. Now, what do I specifically think about cottagecore? You guys probably already know that I am not cottagecore by any means. It does not fit with my lifestyle. It is something that I think I could never really ascribe to fully, but I do see the appeal of it, especially because so many of my childhood inspirations really lean into natural and pastoral settings. Now, if you haven't seen my childhood inspiration video, I will link it up here. I talk a lot about how the Victorian and the pastoral really inspired me as a kid and kind of continue to inspire me today. When I think of my childhood inspiration like Bambi, Beauty and the Beast, Little Women, The Sound of Music, etc., there's a really big emphasis on natural living and just like being in the outdoors. What I'm really trying to say is that I think there is a lot of value in cottagecore, and I think that there are ways that we can implement those kinds of themes into our lives if we would like to, in ways that are simple, in ways that are sustainable, and of course, that are in ways that don't require us to change the entire way that we live. The first theme is bandanas. Now, there are bandanas all over cottagecore, and I think it's because there's kind of like this farm woman aesthetic that comes with wearing a bandana. I actually think it's quite cute. There are a lot of ways to modernize a bandana, like wearing big earrings or wearing a really graphically patterned one. So I think there are ways to like achieve this without giving up kind of a modern taste that you like. It's also a really convenient way to wear your hair down without like having to actually do your hair. Whenever I'm having a bad hair day, I often reach for my bandana and just throw it on. You pull a little couple of pieces in the front here and like all of a sudden you look really cute, kind of trendy, and you haven't even had to do anything. This next theme is more of a fabric theme. There is a lot, and I mean a lot, of linen in cottagecore. I mean, people wear a lot of linen, and I think it's because it's a fabric that has its roots in nature. Obviously, it's made out of flax, so the process of making it is traditionally natural. You went out, you gathered flax, you spun it into some kind of yarn, and then you like made a dress or a shirt out of it. So it has its like roots in being outdoors. It's also just a natural, breathable fabric that a lot of people who are outside a lot tend to wear because, you know, if you sweat, it's not that big of a deal. You'll dry out like that. Now, of course, you can see I am wearing linen today. This is a linen dress from Cottagecore. I will link their shop down below. I found it on Etsy. It's because I do really love linen, but I found that some of the more like cottagecore-esque brands were a little bit too traditional looking for me, so I went for a classic wrap dress that I found was a little bit more timeless. Now, some of those other brands are, of course, Sans de Fleur, which make absolutely beautiful clothes, and several of the influencers that I'll share at the end of this video really have partnered with them and take beautiful photos. They are beautifully crafted pieces. I follow them just because their photos and their feed is so lovely, so definitely check them out. Another one is Little Women Atelier, which is based in Lithuania, I believe, and they also make really, really lovely pieces. Their dresses are based off of the Four Little Women, so definitely such a cute reference to Louisa May Alcott's novel, and definitely a trend in cottagecore. Going quite along with that, we're seeing a lot of puff sleeves. Now, puff sleeves are actually a big fashion trend right now, so this actually works together. If you were interested in investing in some puff sleeve pieces, this could be how, especially because you could find some linen pieces that were in puff sleeves, so you're getting that natural, sustainable fabric, plus the trendiness and the cottagecore aesthetic of a beautiful puff sleeve. And of course, right along with the puff sleeve thing is prairie style dresses. Lots of long tiered skirts, square necklines, or shaped bodices that are lovely and feminine. There's a lot of that I see in cottagecore. I see a lot of also layering of like aprons over them. Some of the brands that do this best are both Doen and Christy Dawn, which I have literally talked about in like every single video. It's just because their pieces are so beautiful, but they're way too expensive for me to afford, so I just like dreaming about them all the time. But anyways, they make some really beautiful pieces. But the great thing is that a lot of these prairie style dresses were a trend over in the 70s. So if you look hard enough, you can find some really great like farm girl or prairie style dresses at your local vintage shops or online in vintage stores. And let's not forget that to go along with that prairie style dress while you're harvesting your summer tomatoes, you need a perfectly good pair of leather lace-up boots. Thankfully, leather lace-up boots are a really timeless silhouette. They are really beautiful. I have a pair in my own wardrobe that I wear every winter. They've held up really nicely. So if you were looking to add a more classic, timeless piece that is going to last you for years to come, leather lace-up boots is a great way to play into this aesthetic while still maintaining both a modern wardrobe and a sustainable one. Of course, how could I even make a video about cottagecore without mentioning boater hats? I put mine on today, especially for this video, although I get a lot of use out of this hat. I wear it to the beach like literally every weekend. Boater hats have been around forever. You see them a lot also in like French girl style. Boater hats are really just a classic silhouette of hat, so there really isn't any way that you can go wrong here if you like that kind of look. And just in case you haven't noticed the theme of natural materials are a really big theme in cottagecore. So to go along with the straw boater hat, there's also an emphasis on straw bags and baskets, which is really, really cute. It's also kind of quintessentially French girl style, although you know I don't like to use that term. So whether you're collecting the last of your summer squash, going out to your farmer's market, or picking some flowers, a basket is a great way to both dress up your look, implement a little bit of those natural materials, but still kind of lean into a cottagecore aesthetic if that's something you're looking for. Now finally, let's highlight some of the wonderful, wonderful women who've made accounts that not only lean into this cottagecore aesthetic, but also have an emphasis on nature and the natural. The first one that I can think of is Fairyland Cottage. Now, if you're not familiar with her, you should definitely check her out. Her videos are a Sunday evening ritual for me. They are a great way to get of those Sunday night blues. She's plant-based, which I really respect, and she lives in this adorable house in the Irish countryside, and she has like a little fairyland like outside in her garden. She's always like collecting herbs and making tea and lighting candles and finding natural low-waste ways to live your life. So Fairyland Cottage is definitely one of my faves. The next is Hill House Vintage. Now, Paula from Hill House Vintage has been an inspiration of mine for quite a long time now. She has a beautiful home in the English countryside, and she really makes just like really beautiful tablescapes, and her home decor is so lovely. It is more busy than I would like for me personally, but I can just tell that she really lives the way that she says that she lives on Instagram. The way that she dresses, the way that she decorates her home, the way that she cooks, it feels all very, very down to earth. So I respect her as a creator so much. The next one is Rebecca from A Clothes Horse. Now that is one of those things that you like lay clothes over to dry, I believe. She really specializes in these like beautiful like running videos, like running off into the distance, and her lovely red hair is like bouncing up and down. It just like is a perfect setting for like literally any movie. It's very Outlander. She kind of transports you to a new place with her feed. It's very 19th century, and there's something unusually comforting about that. And of course, gorgeous photos with an emphasis on the natural, but also an emphasis on literacy and reading, which I think is really lovely, especially as an English major. The next is also one of my favorites. Now, she is more of a Friday night routine for me, which is the Girl in Calico. She makes these beautiful, peaceful videos about sustainable farming, sustainable living, also eating seasonally, baking your own food, making your own food, canning, etc. It's really comforting. It makes me want to like can all my veggies and like start a nice garden outside of my house, which I tried to do this summer and was very unsuccessful at. In her videos, she implements a lot of Bible verses about the changes of seasons, and she's very open about her faith, which as a fellow Christian, I really respect. Kind of along that same way is another influencer, The Magpie Way, which is run by one of my dear friends, Madison. She has such a lovely feed. She just started this account a couple of months ago, and already she's posted such lovely things and is such an inspiration to me. She takes beautiful pictures of lovely flower arrangements, yummy food, thrifted and vintage finds, so there's even some outfit inspiration over there. I really love following her, and I would suggest you do too. And the last one is one of my most recent follows, which I found as I was like scrolling through TikTok, which is where a lot of cottagecore seems to be taking place, is A Garden Inside Me, which is such a cute name. Another beautiful feed, really emphasis on vintage and antique things, lovely mirrors, lots of leather shoes, lots of pretty elaborate collars, lots of books. I'd say she specializes in beautifully displayed flat lays. So if that's something that you like to see, I would definitely give her a follow. So that is that for today's video. I hope that you've enjoyed this little dive into the cottagecore aesthetic. Hopefully it's taught you a little bit more about what it is, where it came from, how you can implement some of those pieces in your own fashion, and who are some of the people that you can follow to be inspired. If you did like this video, I just want to remind you to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Again, let me know below if there are any other style or fashion themes that you would like me to cover in a future Fashion University video. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your viewership. It just makes me so happy. I can't wait to see you in the next one. Have a really great day. I'm going to get back to reading some Jane Austen.